you ready to party? Let's go. Rob Consolo, welcome to the podcast, dude.
What's up, man?
Probably the coolest last name because it goes with Han Solo.
Exactly.
I'm sure you got that last. Am I a jerk right now for doing that?
No, not at all. No, honestly, like I said, we were talking a little bit about it earlier, but fifth grade math teacher, man, that's what he went with, and ever since then, I've heard it quite a few times. So no, I'm totally okay with it, and I'm a space guy, so it vibes.
Oh yes, you are a space guy. We're gonna get into a lot of cool stuff, I think. But you came. This is my first day meeting you actually because we had Seth on here.
Yep.
What was this? Seth
Rosenstein.
Rosenstein. That's right, my guy, who's probably throwing one of the craziest parties for the 4th of July. By the way, which I think we're all going to later today.
And you know what the best part too about this party is that it's actually going to charity.
I know, dude. When he told me that,
yep.
I was like, Seth, this is why I love you, man. So cool. He was like, when we make the money and all the excess he gets, right, it's going to charity.
It's going to Teach for America. So, it's going to go to the kids and to the teachers and stuff. And I think that's super awesome. So that's going to be a great time.
Seth is awesome, dude.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to be wild.
Hey, that's why
There's also going to be no parking.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in LA. There's no parking period.
It's in Redondo Beach, right?
Exactly.
There's no parking.
No, not at all.
Oh, dude. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
It'll be a good time, dude.
We'll park, like in Hollywood, and we'll just walk. Right?
Yeah, I went up to the beach. We're talking about it, but I went to the beach in LA. What was it, Hermosa or something like that last weekend? It took me an hour.
Oh, I'm not even surprised.
Yeah, you know how many times I circled around? I was getting so annoyed, man. I was just like, why did I even come up here? I never come to the beach in LA. This is horrible.
Yeah, so I landed on Wednesday, and Seth had a bunch of his friends. We were going to trivia, and so we get down to it was like the where American Junkie and like all that stuff is. I think it's Redondo or Hermosa. I forget.
Okay,
but regardless, we're down there. We're trying to look for parking, and we get into the parking garage, and it's just packed. I mean, nothing. And we're like, oh, like maybe we could park on the street. And I like say that. Everyone looks at me. He's like, nope. And I was like, okay.
There's no parking on the street here, Han Solo.
The worst part is, like these parking garages that they like put there, you're expecting like, oh, like, at least there's going to be a turnaround up top or something. Like you get up to the top and there's just parking spaces. And, Seth drives this like Jeep truck thing. And I'm just like, bro, we're stuck. Like, might as well just park it here because we're not going anywhere.
Seth, dude. His Jeep, dude, I think it's pretty rad.
Oh, dude, it's sick.
It's rad.
I'm jealous. I love it.
Yeah, I know. I'm driving around a Tesla. I look at him. I'm like, God dang it. I need to get something like that.
Dude, so I put down a reservation because right now I'm driving my 2015 Volkswagen Jetta that's got like 100,000 miles on it.
It's okay.
Oh.
Paid off though, right?
Oh, yeah. Love it. I love it.
Let's go.
It's a great car. But, looking, gas is expensive. I mean, gas is not, at least in Houston, it's not, LA expensive, but it's expensive for what it is right now. And so I've been looking at new cars and stuff. So I put a reservation down for the Silverado EV.
No way.
Yeah. So when those come out, I mean, probably like 2 years from now.
So because, you and Seth and, the friends you guys have, you guys are all very, very intelligent people, which I love. Kids, I'm here, and I say this respectfully. I love the nerds, man. Because you know why, dude? The nerds run the world,
dude.
We may have been picked on earlier on in life, but we freaking run the world.
Hell yeah,
okay,
man.
We make the most money.
Hell yeah,
let's go, baby.
Listen, I always say this. People say like, oh, like is nerd like a derogatory thing? I was like, no, dude. I embrace that, man. I'm a nerd, and I love it. I love the things I do. I love the hobbies that I have and everything. And so I just, embrace it, right? Embrace who you are, embrace your passion. And, that shit carries you, man.
Oh, it's awesome. I still want to go to the desert. I think it's with Seth and shoot rockets.
Yeah.
Or watch them launch rockets.
Yep.
I'm dying to do that, dude. I really want to go.
Well, so there's going to be some pretty exciting stuff this year. I mean, even stuff that I'm working on that, is coming up. It's been a long time coming, but things are happening. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Artemis missions. That's America's return to the moon and beyond.
Is that what you guys is your main focus right now?
Yeah. So my team's a little interesting. So I guess for context, right? I live in Houston. I'm a NASA flight controller.
Let's go. Bingo!
Yep.
We got a NASA flight controller on here, people. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, man. It's a hell of a job. It is.
I'm sure.
It is absolutely one of the coolest jobs. I love it because, you know, it's not for every engineer. You know, there's a lot of engineers that love to get into the designs. They love to really dig deep into the analysis pieces and things like that. Like Seth is a great example. Seth is a designer at heart. He loves to design the rocket bodies and things like that, right? I'm more of an operator. I like my hands-on stuff. I like sitting at a console and, you know, actually seeing the mission through, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I do. So I'm a trainee technically. So we have two pieces to our branch. There's the space station branch, so the International Space Station. Our console is called Spartan. And, you know, in classic NASA fashion, we have an acronym for everything. So Spartan stands for Station Power, Articulation, and Thermal Analysis.
Those are some very big words, Rob.
Yeah, to simplify the best, we do everything power on space station. So anything requiring electrical power, we handle. We do all the rotating joints. So there's actually a whole bunch of things that rotate on space station constantly. So we handle those. And then we also do all the external thermal control systems. So we remove heat from inside a station and then bring it out to the radiators and push it out to space.
Now, what got you... Okay, so how did your aerospace career start that got you into being a flight controller as an engineer? So like what inspired you to do this?
You know, that's an awesome question. I mean, honestly, it really started... when I was a kid, you know, I was a little kid. I watched like my first like space shuttle launch in like a science classroom or something.
Was that the 1990s? That's when they were still...
I was in elementary school probably like in the early 2000s, but like...
Oh, yeah, Rob, you just aged the hell out of me.
I know, dude. I'm sorry.
Dang it, Rob. Why do we got to do this?
I was born in 1995, so... yeah, dude. I'm bringing the age.
Okay, I got to ask this then.
You think that's bad, man? There's people who are like 21 now that were born like after 9/11, and that just throws me off.
It does throw me off, dude. Well, when people... Okay, so I still have the problem with when people say 30 years ago, I still think 1970.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It's not, dude. I'm like, it's fun. It's tripping me out. It's tripping me out. Like, oh yeah, 30 years ago. I'm like, oh yeah, in the 70s. Like, what?
Dude.
No, I'm talking like 90s. I'm like, wait, what's happening?
I saw something the other day. It was like one of those like old Shakira songs, and it was like, yeah, this song came out like 20 years ago. I was like, what? It did what?
Eminem, some of his songs are starting to go in the classics.
Yep.
It's like, what's happening?
Dude, it's crazy. We're going to start seeing throwback albums, and it's going to be like the things like from the early 2000s. And be like, that's not okay.
Dude, it's wild. Wild how fast time flies, dude.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so like hopping back, you know, I saw, you know, space shuttle launch in like a classroom on like probably one of the various movies.
Okay, so not to interrupt you again, but the space shuttle launch, when they wheeled the TV in for you, was it on the cart, tube TV with a strap over it?
Absolutely.
Okay, dude. So you're still in the race.
Absolutely. No, yeah. We're still there. We're still on the same page there.
Okay, I got you.
No, I was in before the era of smart boards and projectors and all the fun stuff.
Yeah, the flat screen coming down from the ceiling. Like, what?
the straight chalkboard that every time the teacher wrote, your ears were burning. You know, that whole thing. Oh, yeah. So... it was New York public school, so we might have been back a few years anyways, but like that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, so I saw that and, you know, I just kind of was sold. My mom said when I was a toddler, I always like had an infatuation with rockets and planes and stuff.
That's cool.
So kind of just carried. And, you know, most kids, you know, they dream, like I wanted to be an astronaut. That was like my, like, oh, I want to do that. I want to ride on that. That looks super cool. And, you know, for most kids that can die pretty quickly because, you know, it's like, oh, that's not achievable or whatever the case might be. My mom did the total opposite. She said, cool, and sent me to space camp. And so I was, I think I was like 12 years old. And I literally flew to Alabama on my own as like one of those like unaccompanied minors because like my mom was a single mom, so she couldn't really leave my sister
God bless
behind.
Your mom, dude. Good for her.
Oh yeah,
she wanted the best for you. That's cool.
Exactly. And so she sent me to space camp, and I went to Huntsville, Alabama, which is where space camp is. It's out of like around like the Marshall Space Flight Center, I think.
Okay, how long was that?
It was about, I want to say like 2 weeks or so.
So it was a good stint. It wasn't like 4 days. You were there for a minute.
It was actually kind of crazy. I mean, listen, I'm 12 years old or something at that point, and we did like a full scale mission simulation, like a 6-hour mission sim where like we did it twice. One time you do it while you're in mission control, and one time you do it as potentially one of the astronauts. And so I did that. I was Capcom in mission control for one of the simulations. So I was talking to the crew, getting the task done or whatever. And then I did it a second time, and I was actually the EVA, like spacewalker, like and they throw you in a full spacesuit and everything. And then you have this like little anti-gravity harness. Yeah. And so you're just climbing it. And wild. I'm 12 years old at that point.
Boy, it got you hooked, didn't it?
Oh, hell yeah,
That's
man.
cool.
And so from that point forward, I saw it as an achievable goal.
Yeah.
I had high school guidance counselors that were like, that's a little rough. Like, maybe you should think about a more achievable career. Like, you be a cop or something or whatever. And I'm first off, I was like, one, you act like being a cop is just this cop out career, right? But that's not, there's a lot that goes into that. And so then the follow up to that is, who are you? What? I'm trying to achieve something big here. You should be providing me my options. It's okay to make someone realize that the statistical, difficulty that's going to come with trying to achieve something difficult like that. But it's, give the man a chance, right? Let them see their options and let them run it, Well,
I think it's a problem nowadays too. Nobody has room to put anyone down when they want to go for a dream or achieve a goal.
Yep.
And that's so damaging to someone who's still, relatively a child in their adolescent years, right? Those are still informative years. You're trying to figure out who you are and your own personality, what you want to do with your life. And then you're like, oh, I want to do this.
Yep.
And then someone who's above you, maybe quote unquote look up to, is telling you, nah, you should probably try something else. That's kind of damaging.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I hated when people told me I couldn't do stuff. People told me I'd never be a firefighter.
Yep.
They said, you're not smart enough. And I felt that. And it sucked. But then I started using it as fuel to the fire. You know what?
Exactly.
Screw you people. I'm going to show you I can do this. So I worked harder.
Exactly. And honestly, that's the mentality a lot of people need. You really need to be able to take critique, whatever that might be, whether it's constructive or not, and being able to use that as fuel in the fire for sure. And I have a lot of things in my background that kind of prefaced me to that before those points to really push me down that rabbit hole. So I guess some background on me. So my mom, sister, and I were actually in a huge car accident. We got hit by a cop car on the way to a bank robbery.
How old were you?
I was in middle school. So I want to say roughly 14 or 15 years old at this point. Maybe actually 16.
You got hit by a cop car that was responding to a bank robbery?
Yep.
What are the odds?
Sheer circumstance. It's absolutely crazy. It led to a whole bunch of things. So my mom is actually now partially disabled. My sister kind of took her own hits as well. I left pretty much unscathed. The one thing I will always remember from that day is, all that happened, and I was actually able to get out of the car, and I was just kind of in shock. One of those, one of those literally just shock moments, right? Where it's if you were in a war zone and things just blew up and all this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. I kind of walked down, I'm looking around, and it's just sheer shock. Oh, yeah. Regardless of that, I think that was a really big defining moment, right? Because there's a lot of things that could happen at that point. We can just shut down and nothing moves on with life, or you take what you can and you push forward, right? And so even for my mom, right? In her partial disability, some people said that she may not be able to walk, she may not be able to do things, whatever, right? And she's living a happy life. Her and her boyfriend travel places and do all sorts of things now, and they are living a happy life and enjoying it. And, same thing for my sister. She just graduated from Drexel and she's doing her own thing as well. So, awesome. There was a lot of things that said, probably we shouldn't have been able to go to college. We shouldn't have been able to achieve our dreams. And a lot of us are doing it. And, it's because we had, I attribute it partially to having such a shocking experience, young, and realizing the limitations of life, and realizing that, things are too short, man, to just sit there and say that's impossible. Screw it. Try it. What's the worst that can happen? You fall on your face, you pick yourself up, you tie your shoes, you keep moving,
Very good. Well said. Oh.
Siri wanted to take part in the conversation.
Siri's joining in on the conversation. And those are situations we've talked about on here a few times, right? Hard times are going to come to everybody.
Yes.
I don't care who you are, whether you have the most money in the world
or
you don't, and you're living on the street. Tough times are going to come, and then they're life-defining moments.
Yep.
You can use it to make yourself better, grit your teeth and get through it, or you can let it conquer you.
Hell yeah.
And I love that that's something that you do is okay, this is happening, but how can I use this to fuel my future?
Absolutely.
And how many times do people tell you, no, you're not smart enough, or you can't do this, or, but you still were like, cool, I'm going after what I want to go after. I wish more people had that in them, but we're all made different.
Yep.
And some people can't handle the discouragement,
100%.
and then so much of it is mental and living in fear. Mm-hmm. And like you said, right? Gosh, well, the fear of something new and change is hard.
Yeah.
Change is difficult. It's hard for me, but it's also the fear of failure.
Yep.
And how many good ideas how many good ideas are in the grave?
Yeah.
Because people were too afraid to step out and take a chance.
100% agree with you.
110%. And I see it all the time with people. They talk about me having this podcast and some other things they do. And I'm like, you guys, I don't have it figured out. A lot of people think I have it made and I got it figured out. I'm doing this and that. I'm like, I don't. I just go for it.
Yeah.
Because what do you have to lose? Someone says no, you fail, you don't get the job, doesn't work out. Okay, well, I'll just try something else. I'll regroup and do it again. I have failed, Rob, a million times.
Yeah.
At a ton of things.
Dude, listen, I get it. It's absolutely same. Absolutely same. I mean, like, it didn't stop at that moment, you know? Like, I mean, failure, and that's the other thing people got to realize too, is that it's not like a fail once and like, oh, it's over. Like, no, dude, things will come from around the corner and just knock you out, put you right on the floor. I mean, I started college as an aerospace engineer and I nearly failed out of college my very first semester.
Wow.
I had a 1.7 GPA.
Oh my guy, 1.7.
1.7. I took a beating and I realized it's because, you know, I wasn't nearly as prepared as I thought I was.
Yeah.
I went in with zero work ethic and I just kind of expected to flow through, and it was not the case.
Yeah, but what has that taught you now?
Dude,
right?
It's taught me a million things, right? It taught me that, you know, your path isn't defined by that one failing moment, right? There it is.
There it is. Love it.
100%, dude.
Just because you fail doesn't mean you're a failure forever.
Exactly. You figure out what you can and you choose the path that still brings you to the same end goal.
Love it, baby.
And that's what I did, man. You know, I changed over. My school was actually, so I went to Embry-Riddle, same place as Seth. So a bunch of like
I keep hearing
airplane rocket nerds.
All these other people. I'm like, I guess I should go to Florida and go to school here.
Dude, I mean, listen, let's be honest. College in Daytona Beach, what a wild idea. I mean, aside from the fact that, you know, super specialized school, like I knew I wanted to do that industry, so it was a great outlet.
Yeah.
But oh my goodness, doing it in Daytona Beach was such a great idea.
It's been wild.
You go do a final and then you just go to the beach. And it's like, wow, that's the best life. I don't know.
Everyone's super tan.
Yeah, dude. So it was a great time. I mean, some people kind of hated Daytona because it's just like one of those one of those towns that's kind of stuck in the days, but it's getting better. It's more like modernized now and stuff too.
Oh God, everyone's moving to Florida.
Oh yeah.
You know, so I'm sure it's I think a lot of things are probably changing. Like just like, was it Florida, Texas, Tennessee?
Yep.
A lot of people are going to those.
Well, so
Montana.
Fun fact, because of like how many people kind of moved in the midst of the pandemic and everything like that, Florida is actually currently the most expensive state to live in, which is pretty shocking to be saying in California. Yeah, someone they released an analysis. So based on like what the minimum wage is and what the average pay and all that stuff is, and based on cost of living, Florida is currently the most expensive state to live in.
And that's because of the influx of people, right?
Yeah, of course. Demand went up, supply went down. So it's crazy.
Because it's really good you say it, because I remember talking about this with somebody, and they're saying because I guess the job opportunity there isn't as much as it would be kind of here.
Yep.
And as far as like pay being high or lower, like the pay is a little bit lower, but now the house prices are going up.
Yeah.
And people can't afford, with the jobs that they offer, they can't afford to really live.
Dude, house prices kill me. I'm like house shopping in Texas and it's still like crazy, and I'm just
that's changed too, right?
Yeah.
With all the people coming out.
Yeah.
Where homes used to be like 250 to 300,000, now they're up in the 5s and 6s or more.
Exactly. So I'm trying to play the waiting game a little bit. I've already established like the first thing I'm probably gonna buy is like something like a triplex or a quadplex, and rent the other places out, and then you have those people who you're renting to are paying your mortgage, and you're just kind of living there for a year.
Oh yeah.
And then kind of move on from that. So I'm waiting. I'm playing the game. I mean, I'm going to be in Houston for probably at least near future, probably longer. So
just wait, dude. Especially if they're saying recession and stuff's coming. Like just wait.
Exactly.
Just wait, man.
Just playing the waiting game for now, and just trying to secure myself as much as possible. But
so when you went to get hired with NASA, how was that process?
So, funny enough, it's actually not a crazy thing.
Really? Because I would think, it's kind of as a child, as a kid, like you said, you watch it on TV, you're seeing these people go to space, John F. Kennedy, we choose to go to the moon, all this stuff. And, it's built to be such an amazing big thing. So you would think like, man, I got to apply for NASA. Like I better have my stuff together. This is going to be hard to get this job.
The hardest part is getting your resume looked at.
Really?
100%. So, I mean, for example, my job, being a flight controller, we're actually predominantly a contractor population. So, there's two, I guess, populations in NASA, right? You have civil servants who are like the true government employees. They work directly for NASA. They work for the U.S. government. Okay. And then you have contractors. So I'm a contractor. I work for a company called KBR. Okay. And they are the prime contract holder on this contract called Integration Mission Operations Contract, or IMOC, acronyms all day. And so we are contracted to help support the operations of Space Station. And so that's who I work for. And it's hard because those applications, I mean, we have listings out, pretty much all the time. They do new classes of flight controllers, and I say classes because it's literally like a class. You are signing up for another master's in operating space.
I can't imagine what you have to know to be able to do that.
It's a 2-year training program.
2 years to be a flight controller.
Yep. It's pretty crazy. It's 2 years. It's like you're learning everything you need to know. So you're learning the high level stuff. So like we call it like, electrical engineering and mechanical engineering for dummies, right? And then you start going into the hardware, like what the hardware is, how it works, what the innards of the hardware look like. Then from that, you start looking at software, and then, start operating, figuring out how to appropriately operate and stuff like that. And so there's a lot that plays into that. And so in order to just get to that point, right? That job listing gets thousands of people, tens of thousands of people at times.
So it's competitive.
Absolutely. There was one person. So the way I got there is I was signed up for my university career fair, and I got a message in our like little platform, and they were like, "Hey, yeah, so like I saw your resume, really interesting, and I'd love to talk to you some more if you can make some time." I was like, "Sure." And then I started looking a little bit deeper because at this point I had no idea who KBR was. I knew like the people who had contracts for flight controllers, but I did not know KBR had that contract.
Well, it's interesting you say because I never knew flight controllers were contracted out. Yep. I thought you were all just straight in NASA. Yep. It's a check the box. We got somebody there.
Exactly. So it's very, it takes a little bit just to figure out the system, right? Mm-hmm. So once you get there, and so I started like Googling, doing the normal, like I'm in college and I'm trying to get jobs, so let me Google this employee or this person, check their LinkedIn to figure out what I need to talk about in this interview. And I look him up, and he's like, "Oh, like he's he's the manager for this branch, like for this console position in flight control." And I'm like, "Oh, whoa, this is real." Like, okay. And so what did I do after that? That's been my dream, right? Like I always wanted to be an astronaut. I still want to be an astronaut, but I always told myself that if for whatever reason that was unachievable for whatever, like, having your plan B, right? What is something else that you would be happy doing for the rest of your life? And I was like, I want to be a flight controller. Equally as hard to try to get into. So yeah, I was a smart kid, right? And so I figured, started looking into everything, and so what I did is I cleared my schedule and I booked time with him and all the HR people that were showing up. And every single HR person told me the same thing. I mean, I'll try, but like, good luck. Like last time we put this application out, we got 18,000 applicants.
For one position.
Yeah. And I was just like,
incredible.
Oh,
that's incredible.
God. So I was just convinced. I was like, all right, like we'll see how it plays, right? End up doing my little talk with the hiring manager, and he was really happy. He seemed to enjoy like talking with me, and that was kind of the end of it. And so then I kind of followed up on my just being like, "Hey man, like it was really great talking to you. Like I hope things are well, whatever." Like it was like a couple weeks after, and he's like, "What are you doing this summer?" I was like, "Well, right now, not a whole lot of anything." And he's just like, "Well, you want an internship?" And I was like, I wouldn't say no to an internship in mission control. And he was like, "All right, let's talk today in like an hour." And he gave me a full-time interview. So like he gave me like what they would typically give as questions and for a full-timer. And it was pretty interesting. There were like some that were like relatively technical, where they wanted you to kind of dive into your technical experiences. But then some situational stuff. And so this is where people have this misconception of like flight controllers, that they have to be these doctoral, crazy, super smart like people, right?
That's what I would think.
Well, of course. And that's
initial perception.
Exactly. And I mean, I thought that too. I didn't think this was a job that I could get until I was 10 years in industry. This is not something I thought that I could just come out of college and do. And I started talking with them more. And now, when I did my internship and stuff, I've come to realize that your ideal flight controller is not the smartest guy in the room that just happens to know everything, because those people are dangerous. It's because their level of intellect, their confidence in I wouldn't say confidence, but just more like their embracing of like all their knowledge, that they just they're not ever willing to really say that they're wrong. And that's a dangerous thing to have in flight controller. You need to be able to rely on your team. You need to have that kind of dynamic, and you need to have a really good problem solving method. You need to be able to sit with yourself, even for something that you like feel like you know, and say, let me start from the beginning. Let's take this step for step and let's think through this problem, because we've got time. There's no rush here. We're not like 60 seconds on the clock. Let's think through this and let's make sure we do the right thing, because if we do the wrong thing, someone can die.
Wow.
And so...
And you can lose millions and millions of dollars.
Oh, I mean, so I wish it was just millions. We're talking billions of dollars.
Oh, my God. So it's almost like what you're saying is it could almost be dangerous to hire someone who's too smart.
To a point. I mean, we obviously, like, I 100% say, like, some of the people in my group are just unbelievably smart, very, very smart people. And, you know, I think everyone is smart in their own way. They have little niches that they're good at, and that's what we try to capitalize on. You know, capitalize on the things that others may know. And, you know, you would think that every single person in my group is going to be, you know, a mechanical engineer, right? We do power, we do thermal. So mechanical and electrical engineers, like, they're probably not even true. There's someone on my team that's biomedical. There's another person on my team that did more like just like human factor stuff, which is something that I have experience in too. So there's a lot of diverse knowledge, and it's because the training program really provides you the hardcore technical knowledge that you're going to need to do. That's why we do that training program. It's to take someone off the street and turn them into an experienced space station flight controller.
But what's the attrition rate on that?
That's the hard part.
So, I mean, because you got to, there has to be standards.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and because I say this all the time. We have standards, at least in the fire service, because you call 911 and your family is hurt or injured or needs rescue. You don't want the C, D, and F firefighter.
Yeah.
You want that B and A.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah,
you want someone who's on it. You know, you got to have expectations, and you got to keep them high, especially in your industry, because there's so much at risk.
Oh, yeah.
So what is that attrition rate for someone who goes into flight controller for NASA? It's 2 years.
That's a really awesome question, because funny enough, it's really low.
Really?
Yes. So the people who come in, our training program is very well built. It is built to really run you through the basics and then get more and more advanced with time, to the point where you're sitting on a console and you truly know what you need to
do. They want you to pass.
Yes.
Because they're putting money into you, right? Absolutely. So they make it to where you can learn, pass the test, whatever it may be, because it's like an investment.
So the cost of training a flight controller is very equivalent to the cost of training a military fighter pilot. It's on the range of like about $1 million per person. So
$1 million.
Yeah, because you got to think, right? There's a lot of logistical pieces to go into it, right? You're talking facilities, you're talking salaries, you're talking people and whatever, right? So it takes a lot of money, resource, and power to get these people through their training. And, you know, it's very well done. They know what they're doing. And it's to the point where, you know, people leave these training programs and assume their positions on console with such a level of experience that they're being poached by all the different commercial companies, because they know that, like, this guy just got $1 million+ guy or girl. We just got $1 million plus training program on how to be a flight controller, how to do operations. And
so after you go through that training, knowing that I've seen this with government agencies. They make you sign a contract to stay a minimum amount of time, because it's like a pilot, right? They sign that 10 or 12 year contract.
And I thought that would be and I thought that would be the case here too, but it is not.
Oh wow, really? So you can get that training, and I would imagine private sector pays a lot better than
it does. I will say this: I love my job. The people I work with are absolutely unbelievable. They are some of the coolest, most just really humble people. And I've worked in the commercial industry. So I've done internships with Boeing. I've done internships with SpaceX, Northrop Grumman. I've been around. I've seen a lot of places. The atmosphere you get working for NASA is one of the true reasons why I firmly believe NASA has achieved, you know, being the best place to work in the government for like 9 years running or something. Yeah. It is just such a different workplace. I mean, you really just get on a different level with your coworkers. They're very exciting to work with. They're very willing to help you. If you ever I walked in the door in January as a full timer for the first time. Yeah. And there's definitely times that I feel like I've asked some pretty stupid questions. And, you know, I mean, that happens, right? Like, you just blank out. You're like,
been there.
I don't know what this is. Yeah. And not one person will ever make you feel bad for that.
I love that.
They'll sit you down and they'll walk you step for step through whatever it is to just help you get that understanding. And that is so valuable.
But that makes such a great work environment, and it makes such a good learning environment where you're not afraid to be like, I don't know what this is. Can you help me?
Yeah.
Where you go somewhere where they put you down, or you're such an idiot, or they make fun of you or make you belittle you.
Yeah.
Now you're afraid to speak up. That's dangerous for a company.
Exactly.
And for a fire department or for NASA or for whoever, you got to be able to feel comfortable in your leadership and the people that work next to you to speak up.
Especially we're doing space, right? Space is extremely difficult. And in our case, and some commercial entities' cases now too, lives are literally on the line. There are astronaut, whether they be private or, true astronauts that are like their lives are in your hands. And if you choose to not speak up, you choose to do something, just to cut a little bit of a corner or cut some time out or whatever, you run the risk of potentially killing someone.
It's too much at stake.
No, absolutely. And that's a lot to take in. And so we have these things that are called like the foundations of flight control or foundations of flight operations. And these are foundations that have been built over the years. They're things you can look up now too, because a lot of them were actually developed by Gene Kranz. He's one of the old flight directors from the Apollo era.
Wow.
And these foundations were predominantly written in blood. They're things that you hear that in aviation, you hear that in space. And it's like these rules and these regulations or whatever, they exist in blood because someone lost their life for these. And so there's things like confidence, competence, vigilance, like things like that have come from all the way back from the Apollo 1 fire all the way to the Challenger and Columbia incidents.
Tragic.
It's just like that loss of life is something that we don't want to see again. And so we try to maintain the level of awareness that we need to ensure that we don't experience that again. And what we're about to do, moving forward is extremely risky, right? We're trying to go to the moon. We're trying to go
Artemis mission's correct.
Exactly.
Right? So everyone knows that.
Trying to go back to the moon, trying to go to Mars. And, if we go to Mars, we're talking, it's a 6-month trip there, right? On a best day. And so you get to Mars and then now you have a 40-minute comm delay and that's one way. So now it's just all right, cool. So I can send a text message. They'll get it in 40 minutes. And then 40 minutes after they send something, I'll get it back. So we're talking 80 minutes, almost an hour and a half.
That's so dangerous.
It's crazy.
So much can happen. So much can happen in a minute.
Yeah.
And you're, oh my God.
Yeah. So it's crazy. Those latencies and stuff like that are things that we, are readily talking about today and trying to figure out so that we have the best possible, operational awareness and also just, preparedness for, executing that mission. So that's our job, right? We plan, train, and fly. So in terms of Artemis, we're in the plan phase. And for Artemis 1, we're getting pretty darn close to fly. And that's kind of what I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
The really exciting thing happening is, SLS is going to launch this year. It's been a long time coming. I've actually remember, I think I just started college when they were talking about SLS is going to launch in
so everybody
2 years.
knows SLS. What does that stand for?
Oh, sorry. Space Launch System. So that is the brand new rocket that NASA has built to send us to the moon and beyond. It is a monster. This rocket, the SLS. Yep.
This is made by NASA, not a third party.
So, all right. I will say this. So NASA doesn't really just build things on their own.
Okay.
NASA, being a government entity, frequently and almost always has a contractor base.
Okay.
So with SLS, there's a bunch of different parties that are involved, ranging from Boeing to, United Launch Alliance. There's all sorts of parties that play, like Lockheed Martin, working with the Orion capsule. So there's a lot of players in hand, right? A lot of stakeholders. So there's a lot that happens with that. It's NASA's project, right? So NASA being the, space entity of the people, right? NASA as a whole is what's developing the initiative and the plan and this prospect or, requirements and things like that. And then they contract to actually get those things built up.
Okay.
But yeah, so a huge rocket. It's when it gets into its later configuration, it'll be about a couple feet taller than Saturn V, but currently it's just a couple feet shorter.
Will it be the largest rocket ever built?
I think at this point it currently is.
And we're going to strap 2 humans on the end of that bad boy.
We're gonna strap potentially more than that.
Oh my God.
But, yeah. So
can you imagine the ride on that thing, Rob?
Dude, if someone
walked incredible.
If someone walked into this room right now with a big old stack of papers and said, "We want you to go, sign on the dotted line.
I'm in.
You're on your way."
I'm in. I would do it immediately.
Yep.
I would leave everything, bro.
Yep.
I would now because I'm trying to comprehend. I talked about this on one episode too, right? It was one of our guests. He's a veteran.
Okay.
And we talked about Saving Private Ryan
and
that opening scene, right? How gnarly that was. And those guys stayed. Not only if they survived the beaches of Normandy, right? D-Day storming and getting into Germany or France, but then they stayed for years, right? Battling. Can you imagine? I'm trying to think here and comprehend. You load into this rocket. You are being shot off to Mars, and you are literally the tip end of a rocket, of the biggest one ever built.
Yep.
And you're flying for NASA.
Yep.
That would hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, dude, this is it.
Yeah.
We're doing this, man.
Hell yeah.
How many G's are they going to pull when that thing launches?
That's a really great question. I don't know the exact number. I mean, it's going to put you in your seat for sure. Like, I mean,
talking 7 times gravity, 8
I would say, I think in terms of just launch loads, you're probably going to feel on the realm of like 5 to 6. It's not going to be anything super crazy because we take those things into consideration, right? And like that's how they design, like, how their chairs are going to be oriented and all these things, just to like try to minimize that type of loading on the person. Now, if God forbid something's going wrong and they have to use the abort system, they're probably going to go to sleep.
Oh, jeez, dude.
It goes, I mean, the launch abort system is a extremely powerful thing, and it has to be, right? You're trying to pull this capsule off of currently the world's, most powerful rocket to get it off and out as soon as possible. Because, if we're using that's because we're having a really bad day. Something really bad has happened, and we need to get you away. So they probably won't even know it's going to happen because the automation will do it for them. But when that happens, I mean, it's going to be hard and fast, and
wow.
They're probably gonna just be asleep for a moment and then kind of get back together, and they're gonna be like, whoa, what just happened? It's like, all right, like we're off the rocket right now, we're going home. Wow. But there's a lot of crazy stuff that plays into that, and so that's kind of what I'm working on right now, actually. Okay. So I have the really unique opportunity to be working on our exploration systems right now. Nice. Typically, I mean, my group right now is a lot of just older shuttle guys. Really, really awesome, super, super smart guys, and a couple gals as well that are very, very smart, and they're awesome people. And so we call that console MPO, Mechanical Power Officer. So we handle all of the power and mechanical systems. So mechanicals are like pyros, hatches, parachutes, like all that stuff. And so we are on console running that mission from launch to landing. Wow. And, so we're preparing for Artemis 1 right now, and it's crazy.
That's so exciting.
It's awesome.
I think, there's, you always hear sometimes, and not to get too crazy at politics, but people are like, we don't need NASA, right? We need to save money and this and that. I'm like, no, we need to continue to explore.
Absolutely.
We have to.
Absolutely.
We absolutely have to. We need to continue going into space.
Yeah.
There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, that's how we are as humans and humanity. Yeah. We have to see what's out there and what's next and what's going to make us better as a human race. What can we discover that's going to push us forward,
Exactly.
I mean, it's amazing. I've talked about it before in here, but the picture that always gets me is the pale blue dot.
Yeah.
It always hits me right in the chest and gets me emotional because you begin to realize how huge our universe is. And as long as NASA's been around, as much as we're doing, we haven't even scratched the surface.
Not even
nothing.
Close.
It's incredible.
Yep.
That's why I follow the Hubble telescope, the pictures that they take. It's out of this world.
Yeah.
I love it. I love everything that NASA and the Hubble telescope and space and what you do and Seth and what's like. I'm glad you're on here because everyone thinks of the astronaut.
Yeah.
When you think of space and NASA, right?
Mm-hmm.
But nobody understands the army of intelligence it takes behind the scenes to get those astronauts into space.
100%.
And the amazing people we have here in the United States that are some of the most genius and intelligent people working behind the scenes to get this done that don't get celebrated as much as the astronauts do.
Exactly. No, there's a whole, like you said it so perfectly. There's an army of people doing this,
Oh, yeah.
They're the operators, right? They're us that are sitting in the console on the day of launch, but thinking before that, there's the engineers that design and analyze every single inch of that vehicle.
Right.
And that's in NASA and through contractors, right? Influx of money into numerous economies across the country. And then on top of that, we start talking about the technician, all the way down to the technician that's torquing a single bolt, that if that bolt is not torqued the right way, could potentially lead to a catastrophic moment for that vehicle.
Wow.
So, there is such a high level of scrutiny and just work and effort that has to go into everything we do. And that goes even into the commercial sector, right? Commercial sector is obviously, they're big on, trying to be slimmer on cost and more innovative and things like that. But that comes with the same level of work and scrutiny that comes with what NASA does. And they're doing it on, an even more difficult scale because they're dealing with less people and at times less time, right? Because you've got a little bit more of a contractual obligation to meet a certain point because you're a company, right? This is not NASA where you're funded by the government. So there's a lot of factors that play into, the moment when we get to launch. And so, SLS and Orion and the Artemis program as a whole has been years in the making. And, the generations of people that have worked on it is unbelievable. I'm just so unbelievably excited to see it actually launch.
Yeah, you're in a place where you're seeing history unfold and you're part of it,
which is absurd.
It's amazing. It will be in history books.
I can't believe that this moment is like real, right? Like that I'm actually on the teams that are doing this at this moment, and we're seeing history unfold. And,
absolutely.
And just working to ensure that history writes the right way.
As a flight controller. And I'm sure you've been in the room when you've launched some of these rockets into space, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, so I haven't been. So I've been for like commercial launches.
Cool.
NASA hasn't launched like their own rocket since Shuttle, and Shuttle ended in 2009.
Right. So you've been. How is that tension in the room?
So
on the day, it can't be. It's got to be a mixture of nervousness, excitement. So like you're thinking, okay, well, God, I hope this doesn't go wrong, but if this goes right, it's gotta be a lot of tension.
So I've got 4 words for you: steely-eyed missile man or steely-eyed missile woman, because these people have trained for years for this moment.
For that moment, right?
For that moment,
right?
And ascent and entry are probably 2 of the more stressful moments because it's a lot of quick thinking, a lot of quick response items and things like that, and I've watched these people perform in numerous, so we do multiple mission simulations, all this stuff, and I've watched them execute time and time again with true scrutiny, competence, and confidence. And they are clear-eyed and they know exactly what they're doing.
I love it.
And it is amazing to see. And, I've seen even sims that go the wrong way, and they purposely go the wrong way, right? Like the training officer in the back is pushing the buttons to make it say, we're gonna have a bad day.
Yeah.
And from that you learn, right? You figure things out, you start to learn, and you get better. And I've been with as a full-timer for just about 6 months, and it's unbelievable just in the 6 months of what I've been able to learn and see firsthand from these guys and gals, that it's just unbelievable, just confidence and competence, honestly, in what they do. Like Gene Kranz has a really famous quote, is like tough and competent, and it's like he writes that on a whiteboard. It's like, this doesn't get erased. This was during Apollo 13. It's like, this doesn't get erased until we get these astronauts home. And this is what I want you to embody every single day you're sitting on console. And that's true.
Wow.
And it's crazy. There isn't nervousness. There's a job to get done, and we're going to do it. And we're going to do it the best we possibly can.
I love it, man.
Super cool.
Let's go.
Now,
dude.
if you just take that same mentality and apply it to everything you do in life.
I was just saying, my God, if people can just start applying that. It's easier said than done, right? You can't teach motivation. You can't teach people to want to study. You can't teach them to want to be sharp or be a part, So when you have a team, it's integral, and it's so important to what you're doing.
Yeah.
The crew cohesion, that that you can trust the person next to you, that they're going to get their job done, and you're going to get yours done. And if you're not, they're going to get your back and help you. And
Absolutely.
same with them, It's so important. In your job, what we do in the fire service, my goodness, dude, I love what you bring up about training, because we train a lot too. Yeah. Because, I always tell people, we get paid for what we're willing to do. And we have to know so many different rescue techniques and fighting different types of fires and swift water rescue and then heavy rescue. And if a plane goes down the airport, you got your crash units. And, it's always this what is, but it's the low frequency, high risk.
Yep.
The one that, that you train for that one moment, man. And
a really, really bad day.
Yeah. And it's cool when you're with a crew, and you you've trained for all those moments. So when it does happen, and I've seen it happen, where it's like, oh my God, this is actually something we've trained for, and everyone's on it.
Yep.
And it just clicks and it flows and you get things done. It's a good feeling.
Hell yeah.
It's a great feeling. And you got to have that, especially in such a high risk atmosphere that you're in. That's so crazy, right?
When you feel the glue stick, that's just truly like an amazing moment.
It's worth the hours and time and the stress and the failure and simulations and doing stuff,
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people have a tough time with constructive criticism.
Yep.
And being afraid to make that mistake in training. But I always say, like, we're here to train. Make the mistake now.
Absolutely.
I'd rather it happen here. I'd rather I make the mistake in training than not be serious about what I'm doing and then get out there and the day comes and I'm nervous and Absolutely. I can't handle this pressure because I didn't take the training seriously.
Yep.
You know?
No, I completely agree. And honestly, I kind of try to take a big... what's the word for it? I try to take a big stance on that, like even just in my daily life, really just trying to, like you say, you can't force the horse to drink, but you can lead him to the water.
Yeah.
Right. And so I try my best, like with my friends and even people that I don't really know. I've had numerous people that will message me on, LinkedIn or like a bunch of places, and they're just like, I just want to know, like, what did you do? Like, how'd you get there? Whatever. And like, I just try to provide them the options, right? I try to not be the high school guidance counselor that said, you should probably do something else, right? I try to be the person that's going to give you the options and, cheer you along the way, right? I've got numerous friends that will probably listen to this podcast that like, I've seen them achieve unbelievable things in their career. And I've had phone calls with them where they are, it's like 12 midnight and they're hysterically crying because it just seems like it's flipping upside down. And sometimes in those moments, that's the most critical moment where someone just needs an ear, man.
True.
Someone just needs an ear to listen and, let them know that like, this is how it rolls, right? This is how the dice have hit the table right now. But the best thing is you're about to roll again. So keep going, right? Like don't give up. Understand that there's a lot of things that are at play and you just have to run the best possible decision you can for yourself and, see where life leads you, right? It's the best one.
Very good, dude. Just spitting out some wisdom over here, dude. I love it, Rob.
That's right, man. That's why
How old are you, dude?
I'm about to be 27 in September.
Oh my gosh, 27 years old and just crushing it. I love it, dude. Now, on your console, I don't know if you can talk about it. No, you don't have to, but I mean, I'm sure. Is there a lot of control buttons that you have and things you're watching? Is there a console? I mean, as far as your spot as flight controller, what are you looking at?
So that's funny. So back in the day, like, so the old Apollo mission control room, it's called the MOCR, the Mission Operations Control Room.
I think it's a museum now, right?
Yeah. So they just restored it. They spent like millions of dollars to bring it back to full kind of like operational status to the point where they accounted for the littlest details. Like they have certain ashtrays in certain places, like cigars and pipes and stuff where they would go. So like they have it set up as if it was the Apollo 11 moon landing again. And really, really cool to see. If you ever go to Space Center Houston, they do a tour and you can just hop on the little tram thing and they bring you there. And the really cool part about it is it's in the Mission Control Center. Like it's not like they took it and they moved it over to the museum. Like no, it is still on site in the exact same spot it was when we landed on the moon. Wow. And it is in its current state. And so it's super, super cool to see. And so when you go there, they do like a full like show kind of, but they show like the displays and stuff pop up and kind of filter as if like it was the Apollo 11 moon landing, and you hear the audio, you hear like Neil Armstrong calling down, all this stuff. It's really, really cool. If you go and see that, right, there's a lot of buttons and dials and like one singular screen that you probably will see on the console. That is not what it is anymore.
I would imagine it's changed.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So it's all computerized now. So we tend to have just like it's a computer that has like 5 to 6 monitors, and those monitors are fully loaded with data and all sorts of information that we are constantly scanning.
So you just have a mouse like computer.
Yep.
And you're doing your thing.
Pretty much. Wow. And so like, we'll have all these data streams up and, they'll produce themselves in various things, whether they're numbers or graphs or whatever. And we are just scanning, right? We have like, we call it a data scan, and we're just kind of looking through certain pieces of data and just constantly trying to assess, what is the state of our system? Are we trending in a bad direction? Are we trending good? Are things working the way they should, right? Having the knowledge and know-how to see like, this is what we're doing right now, and this is what I should expect to see, and this is what I'm seeing, right? Making that constant comparison, so that way if something's going on, the first thing you do is Flight Spartan, I've got an issue, here. And a lot of time we have automation and like software and stuff that will tend to call it out before we honestly even get a chance to see it. But knowing how to interpret that is a whole nother thing, right? So, we get like, alarms or something like that. They'll say like, hey, like this is happening. And so now, first thing that happens when that happens is flight director is going to call your console and say, hey, what's happening? And you kind of have to either on that moment, either you would know what's going on or say, hey, I need a few minutes. And that's a very reasonable response that people actually don't realize that we have. Like, something's going wrong. We'll probably say, hey, give me like 5 minutes and I'll get you an answer, because we're not going to rush to a conclusion. Let's figure out what the problem is here. And typically you'll have a back room. So, some more context, right? That 2-year training program gets you to the back room. It's what we call the MIPSR, multi-purpose support room. And that's like your like, I say backup, but truly it's a two man or 2-woman team, right? So you are working together, typically in like dynamic ops and stuff like that to help figure things out. Once you finish that 2 years, then you've got about another 6 months or so, and that gets you into the front room. So the front room is like the true flight control room. That's where the flight director and all the like real consoles that you see on like TV are. And then from there, you can start to do all sorts of different certifications, right? You can do like instructor. You can do, we start doing like things called like expedition leads. So they actually, an expedition lead is like takes possession of a crew and pushes them through their training program and stuff like that.
Wow.
So there's a lot of things that you like. My job doesn't have to be just at a console, which is wild. Very, very cool. And that's like the train piece, right? So you have plan, train, and then the flying.
So there's room for you to expand.
So much room.
That's awesome.
There's so many options. And that's just really one of the coolest parts that I didn't even expect going into this job. Great example is, so I got certified in a lesson as an intern. As an intern, we put our interns through like literally the flight controller program. So we put them through the first segment of training, which is typically a couple weeks or it's like a month or so, which is like the first, it's kind of more like the mechanical, electrical, like engineering for dummies phase where we start introducing them to like the high level, like this is what's on space station. We get them command trained. So we do a whole separate training to get approval to send commands to things. Wow. And so we put our interns through, like interns are not getting coffee. They're not like just sitting around.
It's not what people think of the movies, right?
Exactly.
They're actually getting legit training.
Oh, yeah.
Things that can inspire them and help them get to where they want to go.
110%.
Thank you, NASA.
They're developing.
Good Lord. Good job.
Yeah, they're developing procedures that we use today. They are doing the same work that we're doing.
So NASA really gives a crap about their employees.
Oh,
so I would imagine they have pretty good retention.
Oh yeah. So now with the commercial industry, it's becoming harder, right? It happens, and there's a lot of steps that go into hiring people. So obviously, it takes a lot to kind of recover from that level of attrition. But the truth of it is the people who do leave, I mean, they're typically not leaving because they hate their jobs. They're leaving because there's just a new opportunity and a new challenge that they want to pursue, and that's totally reasonable. Yeah. But I'm here because I love it, and everyone I talk to loves their job. We love what we do. We love the people we work with, and that's valuable in itself.
That's so great because that's read a statistic. Like I think it's like over 80% of Americans hate going to work.
Yeah,
that's thinking nuts. Why then? Why don't you have the courage to just leave and do something else, 100%. Man? Your life is short. What if we spend like 75% of our lives at work?
Yeah.
And you're going to work somewhere that you don't like?
If I was waking up every morning hating what I was doing, I'd be a miserable person.
Oh my God. It would mess with your psyche.
Absolutely.
Your mental health.
And people don't realize that, man. Like, I mean, the things you do at work, the things you do in life, whatever, right? That stuff carries with you. Oh, yeah. And like if you had a bad day at work, you tend to come home and feel like a little rough, right? Like, and that's just natural, right? Yeah. It's, your brain latches onto those types of things. So you want to wake up and go somewhere that you are going to be appreciated, that you're going to love what you do, and that you can just like live your life happily both in and out of the office.
Right.
And oh my God, I mean, like work-life balance at NASA is a huge thing. I've got people on my team sometimes that like, they'll be like, hey man, like I just want to make sure like you're not like overworking yourself or anything. I'm like, man, I'm not even close to what I was doing in college. This is so glorious.
That's good. You got to have that work-life balance, man. 100%. I think a lot of places, at least in America, they don't do that. I mean, for me, I know at least in the career that I chose, I actually, I wake up and go to work like, oh, cool, I get to go to work today.
Yeah.
Where some people wake up like, oh my God, I can't believe I got to go here. They got a terrible boss or coworker. It's priceless to be able to say, oh, I get to go to work today.
Yeah. And you know what? And like the space industry is not immune to that. And I've had plenty of conversations with people that like some of my friends, really close friends that are just have had those moments where they're like, there was months of time that they were like, I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. And I was like, then you need to look for other options.
Look elsewhere.
Look elsewhere, because at this point you've done your best effort to make this job your a home for you, right? To enjoy what you're doing. And the truth of it is now, let's assess, what you really want to do and take that leap. Hell, my cousin, she did a pretty interesting pivot, right? So she went to Cornell, and she went and did like a kind of a human factors design thing, and went back to New York City and worked worked for a really big ergonomics firm called Human Scale, and just did her job, and realized over time that she wanted to do something else, and she ended up pivoting big time, went back to school, and now she's a nurse in New York.
Good for her.
Yeah, and she's a couple years older than I am, and so when I heard her doing that pivot, I was probably still in college, and it even made me reflect for a moment. I was like, am I doing what I want to do? Yeah. Granted, my response was, hell yeah, I'm doing what I want. Yeah. But for some people, that's not always the case, and I even say that with kids who are considering going to college and stuff like that. Is know what you're going in for. College is way too expensive, especially now in the modern time, to just go in kind of guessing what you want to do.
You're kidding,
you gotta be going in with some level of intention, so you know what you're going to do, because otherwise you're going to be dealing with a whole boatload of debt for a whole no good reason.
Doing things you don't want to do.
Right.
Being a job you don't want to be in.
Exactly.
Dude, I got a question for you. So
yeah, go for it.
The Artemis missions that we're going on, we've been to the moon. Mm-hmm. Why have we taken such a huge, I'll say generational gap of not going to the moon? And if we've been there, why don't we have the data and that technology to help us kind of get going quicker? Yeah.
So honestly, the biggest pieces to that is, one, think about what was happening when we went the first time. It was a war. It was a Cold War. Oh, yeah. And the Cold War is cold because there wasn't this exchange of gunfire, things like that, but it produced itself in other forms. Exhibit A, the space race. And so we had a much larger intention behind what we were doing, so the checks became a lot more blank. It's not only hard, but it's really expensive to go to space. Yeah. There's a lot of just like we've talked about, all the things we've just talked about, whether it be people, facilities, et cetera, that stuff costs money, and it costs a lot of money. And keeping it up with the times costs even more money, right? Yeah. So that's one of the biggest reasons, is that we just haven't had the level of intention that we had back in the Cold War, right? And again, this is speaking from my own opinions. This is not really NASA's opinion here.
Absolutely.
But it's just really there's that level of intention that comes from just the highest levels in the government that really push that kind of initiative, right? And it really wasn't until, I'd say, probably around the 2012-ish era where space started to come up as a question again, right? It was kind of that moment of time that phased out after Space Shuttle, which Space Shuttle was a great program. It built the space station, and we needed it to build Space Station. Space Station wouldn't exist without the Space Shuttle. It was the school bus of the sky. It was able to bring up such unbelievable payloads up. But it was extremely expensive. It cost about $1 billion per launch of the space shuttle.
Oh my God. $1 billion a launch?
Yes, $1 billion per launch. So that's a lot of money.
Dang, man.
And so with all that considered, it's how do we do this on a better platform, right? It's got to be more usable. It's got to be more efficient. There's a lot of pieces that have to play into it, right? On top of that, there's just a level of design work and kind of the lines in the sand in which we have to get past in order to, approve a design and approve requirements and do all these things that it just takes, a level
so there's
of time.
There's a lot more behind the scenes than we understand to
Absolutely.
Get to that point again.
Absolutely. Right. NASA is not a commercial entity, right? Commercial entities operate with one primary thing in mind, which is a dollar sign, right? And I won't say that entirely, right? There's a lot of companies that really embrace a mission. And of course, that's important, right? Most companies nowadays have some type of mission or vision or stuff, but space entities tend to follow their mission a lot more intensely than an accounting firm, right? Just because their missions tend to be expanding humanity across multiple celestial bodies and all these things, right? And they embrace that and they push that. But in addition to, there's the ability to increase dollar signs, right? And that typically comes from NASA contracts and all that stuff too. Yeah. And NASA's made a lot of pivots in that time too, right? NASA, back in the day, the Apollo era and stuff like that was really focused on doing their own kind of missions, where now we're embracing the commercial sector, right? It's the idea of enhancing and bettering the commercial sector so that NASA doesn't have to do everything. Those commercial sector like bodies can do things really well and have, this like level of time that and level of ability that we as NASA just really can't like achieve at the same exact level, because there's a lot of different pieces to play into it, right? NASA, it's public opinion, it's what the government entities want, all those things, and so it's all based around those ideals, and so you kind of have to operate around that to still pursue an end mission, but in the best possible way with regard to funding and so on. With a commercial entity, they're funded by investors, they're funded by their own level of initiative, and so there's a lot of cool things that can happen, and I think that partnership is the new NASA.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong here. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I know a lot of us who are not involved or know how NASA runs or this space and these other companies, but we're seeing billionaires injecting themselves, launching into space. And I got to be real, it's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
I'm thinking you're doing this just because you got the money. Are you really in this for the exploration and the advancement of humanity? Or is this just, look at me, all right? Jeff Bezos. Yeah. Okay, I'm thinking, what are you doing, dude? Wore a cowboy hat. He's landing, popping champagne. I'm just like, what did you accomplish? Like, great job, dude. Cool for you. Now, it has to bug people who are actually really into the aerospace industry, right?
So I'll say this. I definitely think I have friends and stuff that definitely like get annoyed by it for sure.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I don't really care. And this is why I say that, right? Their money is going towards the furthering of us in space.
Okay, that's a good point.
And you know what? Yeah. I'll take that any day of the week, because the truth is NASA, commercial entities, whatever, really what we do does rely a lot on the public's perception and in our pursuit of space, right? Yeah. And you mentioned this way earlier, right? The common question of like, why do we need NASA? Like, we could use that money and solve hunger or like things like that, right? And it's like, it's just so much bigger than that.
It is.
The efforts of us going to space bring technology back down to Earth way more than a lot of people give credit for, and people forget about that a lot.
Yes.
Things such as cell phones, right?
Right.
Cell phone technology. You talk like refrigerators, man. You talk ballpoint pens. That's all stuff that came from space.
That ballpoint pen thing, people don't understand that.
Yeah.
That became because of the space race.
Yes. The Fisher space pen is what started the idea of a ballpoint pen.
Yeah.
The idea that, we can, or at least much further enhanced the technology of a ballpoint pen. But it really, truly comes down to that space pays back dividends compared to a lot of the other initiatives.
To our culture, to the advancement of what we're doing on Earth, technology, like you said. And I'm a huge kind of history nerd. That's why I kind of know some of this stuff. Yeah. People, I have tattoos, whatever, and surf, and I do all this crazy stuff. But I dig this type of thing. I look into it all the time. I'm like, oh, that's where the ballpoint pen came from. That's crazy. It came from because of the space race.
It's crazy, man. And it even goes beyond that too, like MRI machines, like things we use on a daily basis. Cancer, like treatments for cancer, screenings for cancer, like those things are experiments that are being done on space station, and experiments that we did during Apollo, and all these things that we like have learned how to do these things because we wanted to see how space impacted the body or whatever. Or how we would go about operating in this environment or whatever. And now those technologies translated back down here, right? That's what NASA is. NASA is an entity for the people. It is a government entity, and their job is to provide a better life for those for their constituents, which is the people of the United States, right?
Yeah.
And they do so through the technologies that they're able to develop. And then the other factor that plays into this is that NASA doesn't just do space. It's the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. They're doing a whole boatload of stuff with regard to supersonic airplane travel and like how to minimize, sonic booms and how to enhance, efficiency of airplanes and things like that to minimize fuel usage or try different types of fuels. And there's so much that goes on in this entity. It is a true just R&D kind of situation, and all of that pays right back into the American people.
Oh, absolutely. Those astronauts that are going to be for the Artemis missions, are they picked already? Or are they kind of, is it like a race to see who's going to be picked?
No, so no one's picked yet, and who knows when that's going to happen. I'm hopeful, right? Hopefully we'll hear something soon. But
can you imagine being the person picked?
It's going to be pretty crazy.
Oh my!
Being the first people to go back to the moon after Apollo.
That's huge.
And there's a lot of really cool stuff that, I mean, if I was one of those first people, I would say like one of the first things I would love is just being able to see, some of the stuff that people have left up there. So
I was about to bring that up.
Apollo 17
left a picture, right?
Yes,
a picture, a plaque.
think it's Ed White. He left a family photo in the regolith, and I was like, that's freaking cool.
And didn't we leave a plaque up there too?
Yeah, So on the bottom of the LEM, which is the lunar lander, there's a plaque for the Apollo 11 one that says like, we came as a man to unite the world and like all this stuff. It's like,
dude, that just hits me in the heart right now. It's just it's super cool. Deep. It's so deep.
Oh yeah.
I can't imagine being those guys and the Apollo, that lander, part of that landing, what do you say, machine or whatever it was, is still on the moon.
Yep.
And what about the flag? I think it's got to be all faded out, right?
No, it's still there, man. It's still there, and it's just hanging out there.
That's incredible.
It's real cool.
Well, whoever gets picked, good for them.
Yeah,
I think that's so rad.
Hell yeah, man.
But one of the last things, because we're kind of running out of time now. This might be an interesting. Yeah, I know. This might be an interesting subject. I don't know if it's touchy or not, but UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena.
Okay, gotcha.
Now, is that something that's very taboo? And NASA, like, okay, we can't talk about this if. I'm not saying that it exists, okay, but if something comes across a video camera or screen, we can't talk about it.
Dude, I got aliens working at my cube right now. Stupid. No, man, no, it's definitely not taboo. I mean, I've never seen anything,
right.
And I really don't know how that all works. But to be honest, I mean, if we saw something really cool, that'd be awesome. Our jobs at NASA, right, are trying to find life somewhere else too.
Yeah.
So, that plays into everything. I don't know how all that stuff works, to be honest, but like if we did see something while like whatever's going on, I mean, if I remember correctly, like there's been moments where space station cameras have caught stuff, and I mean those are all publicly accessible streams, and those
I follow
people just get that. Yeah,
there's some page that I follow that. That's this whole guy's thing.
Oh yeah,
is watching those live feeds.
Yeah,
and pulling those instants off. Or, they shut it down because something came by. I'm like, well, whatever, dude.
Well, and it's just really hard to tell, like, to be honest, because like where space station is in space or whatever, I mean, it's 250 miles up, and there's a lot of things that are in that kind of like orbital area.
Space junk, right?
Right, space junk, like all sorts of, whether they be pieces of other rockets or pieces of satellites or just old satellites that don't work anymore or literal working satellites, right? Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that's up there, and they're all moving at 17,000+ miles per hour. And so like we as space station actually, we have a console called Topo. They're like the trajectory person, and their job is actually looking at where space station is going and looking ahead of it and saying, is there stuff there that we might like potentially impact? And so if so, we do, avoidance maneuvers. So like space station actually has like engines on it. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so the space station will like push it up or bring it down or do like move it around to avoid debris, because, we've obviously designed space station to be able to, take a hit or two, right? Like it's not meant to just like totally fall apart as soon as like one little thing hits it. But there's, we try to avoid that situation at all costs, because,
I'm sure.
Those things are moving extremely fast. And I mean, if you've ever shot a firearm, right, a little piece of metal, right, that's a bullet moving at some extremely fast speed. Take the same exact concept, like a metal plate, which is like the side of space station, and a little piece of metal moving at, 17,000+ miles per hour.
A lot of damage, dude.
Oh,
that can do a lot of damage.
Yes,
a lot of damage.
So they, big concern is just being aware of those things. But yeah, so long story short, with your UAP comment, there's really not much taboo about it. Like if anything, like we think it's pretty freaking cool.
Okay, so it's rad. It's not like it's taboo. They're trying to hide anything. You get in trouble if you say something.
There's plenty of NASA people that would love to see aliens, or for us to like land on Mars and find like a new life or something.
Well, I mean,
really cool.
Again, I go back to that pale blue dot.
Yeah,
and it makes you realize how big our universe is, and it's just our galaxies, and then the millions of galaxies that are out there. Yeah. And there's I'm thinking. I always say it. I'm not saying little green Martians, but there's got to be more than just us, dude. To think that we're the only intelligent life in this humongous space and time, to me, that's a little arrogant.
If you want to talk pale blue dot exemplified by 1,000, there's a new picture that just came out, I want to say a couple weeks ago, and it's from Voyager 1. Voyager 1 is one of the very first satellites that we launched as humanity.
Is that outside of our solar system now?
Yes.
No way.
And it is still in contact with us. and just sent back another picture of Earth from, I think it's Oh gosh, it's like millions and millions of miles away now at this point. But they took a little picture, and we just look like a little star in the background of just all of these things that are out there. You know, various like other, you know, celestial like groups and things like that. That, you know, all you see is just little Earth, and it's like literally this big. It's just,
and we're on that little speck.
Yeah. And so I mean, I highly encourage you and like if your listeners and everything, like check that photo out, because if you think pale blue dot makes you feel small.
What's that picture called? Is there a name for it yet?
I don't know if there's a name for
it. It's from Voyager 1.
If you look up like latest Voyager 1 photo, I'm sure it'll come up in Google. But
how long does it take for Voyager 1 to send back information? Is that like years or months?
It's got to be like an absurd amount of time. I mean, it's. I don't think it's at the months point per se. So like, right, it's all about the travel, the speed at which light can travel, right? So like 1 light year says it takes light a year to travel. So it's not that far away. I'd say we're definitely on the factor of like weeks for like information to come back from Voyager 1.
We're still in contact with it. That's incredible.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
Very, very
and the
crazy.
that was launched in the 90s, right? Or 80s?
That was launched in like
70s?
Probably. I think it was like some.
How is the technology
I think it was before,
still able to work?
Dude, look at the space station. Space station is currently, I think it's approaching its 25th anniversary, either in a year or two.
Wow.
And it was designed originally for like a 10-year mission.
And we're
yeah,
I love it.
You know, we designed with some crazy levels of protections, and I mean,
and it's our astronauts who go up there and fix it and build and add on.
Yeah,
right?
and we help make that happen, right? So we as operators, we figure out, all right, like these things are broken, let's replace it. And they've got replacement parts and stuff like that up there that, you know, a lot of the pieces of space station are kind of modular, so that we can simply just pop it out, put a new one in, right? I mean, we used to have like old nickel batteries, and now we have lithium ion. So like, you know, things like that, we upgrade to try to make it better and try to continue its life as long as it wants to be funded. Yeah. And so it's pretty exciting.
Well, I'll tell you what, I want to keep funding. You heard it here on Let's Go Podcast. Let's keep funding, man. I love it, but
let's go keep funding.
Yes, let's keep funding. But Rob, thank you so much for coming on here, man, and just being so open and talking about what you do. And again, I think, you know, everyone thinks of NASA and space, they look at the astronauts, but I'm so big on the people behind the scene. It takes intelligent, hardworking, motivated people to keep pushing us farther and further into space. So to you, to your team, and everyone at NASA that are working so hard, thank you so much. I love it. I follow everything space and flight. I skydive. I love jumping out of planes, dude. So I think it's amazing. I think exploration is needed, and we got to keep pushing. We got to keep pushing, because who knows what we'll discover one day, what it'll do for just Earth and humanity, you know?
Absolutely, man. You know, just be outside your comfort zone, keep pushing, don't give up on dreams. And like, it's such a real thing where life can take you. And I mean, I love that you say you skydive. Like I skydive, I scuba dive.
That's awesome.
I've done everything, man. It's because I love to like push myself outside the comfort zone, and I love to just really try to and keep living life, because beyond just space and beyond everything, you know, we have a life that we're living here, and, you know, you should be living it to the best you can, and don't let your dreams fall just because, you know, something goes wrong the wrong way, right? You just keep living, keep enhancing, keep driving. Hell yeah.
Ended on that, dude. Very good. Rob, thank you so much. When we get out of here, we got a challenge coin for you, some stickers and a shirt, man. So just say thank you. On the challenge coin in the back, it says 2 most important days of your life: when you were born and when you find out why.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much, man. I hope you have a great 4th of July.
Yes, you as well. Thank you so much.
Enjoy, dude. It's America, baby.
Yeah.
Freedom, dude. I'll be launching little rockets.
Yeah, dude. It's gonna be a good day. And thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it.
I'll tell you what, Rob, you are welcome here anytime. Any other friends that ever want to come on here, work with NASA or space or anything.
We'll pull more Embry-Riddle people in here.
Yeah, well, dude, we're gonna be the launching pad for Embry-Riddle. So good, but let's go on 3, okay? You ready? 1, 2, 3.
Let's go.
Bye, everybody. And that's it. Thank you for listening in, everybody. I'd like to thank our sound engineer who makes this podcast happen and makes us sound very good, Stephen Clark. And to our first sponsor, 89 Barbers. Look good, feel good, be great. Come get your haircut at 2 locations, Long Beach and in Orange, California. Your appointment can be booked at 89barbers.com. That is EIGHTNINE BARBRERS. 89barbers.com. Again, look good, feel good, be great. Check it out. That's my barber. He is the man. Thanks, everybody. Bye.